If manga is high quality French cuisine, then manhwa is shitty, mass-produced, greasy, scummy McDonald's that you can't stop eating. And that's because nowadays manhwa is posted on Webtoons, a site that rewards quantity over quality. This means that a scene which will only last around a chapter is broken down into 5 because they get paid based on views per chapter rather than hard copies sold. This leads to extremely dragged out and repetitive stories that start out fantastic and slowly descend into garbage. So why the fuck am I still talking? Well, once you've eaten up all the good manga, at some point you're gonna end up turning to manhwa while you wait for chapters, and I've grouped up what I believe to be some of the best shit Korea has to offer. So down in the comments there will be a list of every comic I'm talking about so you can skip around the video, which I recommend. This is gonna be pretty informative, there's no hee-hees, no ha-has, you won't laugh, it's just info. A star means that I think the manhwa is pretty good, even by manga standards. If you read nothing on this list, at least check out Bastard. I'm gonna give some slight spoilers, so if you don't want to hear it, read the first 5 chapters. Our main character is Jin, a young kid who's forced to live with a serial killer, his father. Ever since early childhood, he's been forced to be an accomplice, often doing his dad's dirty work. Jin does as he's forced until one day, his father takes interest in a girl that Jin likes. Jin begins to silently rebel against his father and play all sorts of mind games and strive for self-improvement. The author is really good at creating these intense, nerve-wracking scenes, which definitely makes his manga a thriller. There's some extremely well-written plot twists here and there that I remember even months after reading it. It was an addicting and adrenaline-filled story. Jin starts out as a weak outcast who actively wants to better himself, slowly overcoming his trauma. He's really smart, brave, and a fun character to root for. The friends he gains are also great additions to the story. Finally, the dad was such an unnerving and well thought out villain. I really appreciate how these characters were made. Here's my verdict. If you'd like a darker story that'll keep you guessing the whole way through, Bastard is the way to go. It's a short read at only 98 chapters and in my opinion competes with some high tier manga. I should also mention that the end is a fulfilling and great way to end the story. Check it out. Solo Leveling is probably the most well-known manhwa in this list, and for good reason. It borrows elements from the isekai genre and spins them in a really unique and satisfying way. The real world and fantasy have been connected by gates appearing in the form of dungeons. To combat some of these monsters and extract valuable resources, and hunters have been employed to subjugate some of them. One of these hunters is Sun Jin-woo, one of the weakest ones around. While clearing a dungeon, a tragedy befalls Sung and his party, causing him to end up being reborn with a game-like UI. With it, he can take on quests, level up, and so on. So you watch him go from being at the lowest rung of society all the way to the top, and it's super satisfying. By watching him become more and more overpowered, he always finds enemies that are stronger than him, so there's always a new challenge. There's some satisfying growth and really impressive art in the mix, and you have a super entertaining read. If you're new to manhwa, this is definitely where you want to start. And if you're a fan of isekai but feel like the genre is getting stale, absolutely check out Solo Leveling. The only reason I'm putting this one on the list despite it having 22 million fucking readers is that I can't even enjoy Roblox Minecraft crossover hentai without seeing a comment saying, "Scam, read Solo Leveling." That's like saying watch Bleach. Everyone's fucking seen Bleach. Why would you want me to suggest something you've already watched? I'm fucking with you guys, but hopefully everyone stops. Red Storm is about a kid named Yulian who encounters a wandering martial artist named Noah. In order to get revenge for his mother, Yulian asks Noah to teach him how to become a warrior, and through years and years of intense training, Yulian fully develops into a badass and likable main character. The story takes place in a unique and imaginative world with its own animals and ecosystem. The world continues to grow as Yulian has to deal with usually political shit bores me, but in Red Storm, nah. It's quite action-packed, but despite having some extremely badass moments, you can find a lot of entertainment in the world building, relationships between characters, and the plot. Anyway, manhwa usually falls down this hole where the main character becomes this insanely overpowered mess, but even in chapter 150, Yulian is still fighting for his life. It's a nice read where you get interested in Yulian's development. The characters are all super cool, and the relationships between them get you really invested in the world. The art and character design is also super nice. Red Storm is one of my favorite manhwa. I gotta suggest you pick it up. There's about 300 chapters, and it doesn't feel like the story is getting dragged on yet. Give it about 20 chapters, and if it's not for you, skip it. You know, I really wish I could tell you what the fuck this one's about, but I really can't, so here's me trying to describe it anyway. In some twisted, dystopian world, a demon captures and lays a curse on a princess. Only contrary to how it might appear, the demon lord wasn't evil at all. A knight is sent to kill the demon lord and succeeds only to fall in love with the princess, much like the demon lord did. They develop a cute little relationship until the princess is snatched right out of the nameless knight's hands. He then goes on an obsessive journey to reclaim what he's lost, meaning he'll do whatever it takes. His personality becomes more and more twisted and cold as he goes on this revenge-fueled trek. The world this manga takes place in is completely original, filled with cool looking enemies and architecture. I really respect when a story makes me interested in how the world works. There's a ton of action and super cool moments from the main character, but that's not why you're going to want to be reading this one. The story is extremely interesting and entertaining. You can definitely feel that the author has thought out the story that he wanted to tell. There's tons of plot twists that don't feel forced at all, and you really get emotionally invested in the main character. The art's insane, but maybe a little bit messy at times, and the character design is incredible. Especially the waifus. But I can't recommend this one for everybody. The story can be complicated at times and maybe even boring for some. My verdict is read the first 5 chapters, and if you're not feeling it around then, drop it. This manhwa relies heavily on your curiosity and willingness to learn more about the plot. If you're not interested around 5 chapters, I don't think this is for you. However, if you're looking for something different and are sick of the happy, mass-produced shit, check this out. It has a more somber tone that I was really into. Speaking of revenge stories, you're gonna want to be reading Painkiller. In this world, a god sent 12 generals and 96 angels to bring peace to Earth. Only gradually these angels became more and more corrupt, abusing their powers in the name of God. Naturally, the humans hold unquestioning and undying loyalty for the angels. Among the angel pyro soldiers, our main character is Teo, a psychotic badass who has the power to make others feel his pain. After being majorly fucked over and used as a pawn for 2 years, Teo is finally red-pilled and uses everything at his disposal to kill Pyro, even murdering waves of soldiers and becoming a fugitive. And there's some metal-ass shit that happens that I don't even want to spoil. The story will rely heavily on you empathizing with Teo's situation and wanting to see this cunt get murdered. Teo's really likable, but I have quite a big bias for the too angry to kill types, and that's exactly what he is. There's some badass moments in the manga that force you to keep reading until 3 AM, even though you've already missed first period consistently for a week and are about to flunk math. But even without the sick moments, the first few chapters are a super emotional roller coaster that suck you into reading the rest of the story. My verdict is, if you want a more serious story with a ton of action and a really likable main character, you gotta be reading Painkiller, especially for the waifus. I'd say read up to chapter 11, and if you're not feeling it, skip it. But then I mentioned the anime titty. Something I forgot to mention is that there's this really abrupt ending that left on a bit of a cliffhanger. Manhwa does this thing where they upload in seasons as opposed to finishing a story in one go, so I don't know if the story's done, or on break. Check it out regardless, I was fine with the ending. Making this video a bit less depressing, we have Hardcore Leveling Warrior, and if you're not already reading it, you're either above the age of 12 or just don't know how to have fun. This story is about a player of a game called Lucid Adventure, a game where you can only access in your sleep. Our main character, who I'm just going to call Aight, is the most powerful player in this game and basically unbeatable. That is, until all his stats are reset and he's bumped down to the bottom of the food chain. This becomes a problem because due to some loan sharks, he's basically forced to make money through the game or be killed. While in the slump, he gets a proposition: level up this kid and he'll have all his debts paid. The story is action-packed and I think it deserves a place in the story. If H is killed in the game, all his stats are reset to 0. There's also the fact that if he fails in the game, he'll be killed in real life, so there's actual stakes that make every event more entertaining. But the fights themselves open up to infinite possibilities since this takes place in an imaginary world. There's a giant tournament arc, so this means that co-op attacks with a shit ton of unique abilities and skills being thrown out at the same time. The fights are just really easy to get addicted to. It's also cool to see that H didn't just become number 1 for no reason. Despite him acting like a dumbass, there's always a scheme or something he's plotting to always come out on top. It's a really rewarding feeling when that happens. And like all good stories, there's ass and titties. So here's my final verdict. If you want a fun read with a lot of chapters and need action, definitely give Hardcore Leveling Warrior a shot. Despite taking place in a video game, I never got that
"Oh shit, here we go again"
feeling. It has its own distinct vibe and it's just a fun read. I think this one's actually Chinese, but whatever, fuck it. Moshi fanren kicks off in a post-apocalyptic world overtaken by zombie-like monsters. Our badass main character makes one last stand against hundreds of them and is killed. The catch is, immediately after death, he wakes up 10 years in the past, when the infection first began. Using his knowledge of the future, he's able to know every major event and who to link up with ahead of time. But his main goal is to protect his girlfriend, who he hasn't even met yet. He also knows a method to use the infection to strengthen his body and also get a 10-year head start on everyone else. Now, I honestly can't tell you the story is great, but goddamn is it a fun read. The main character is badass, and it's really cool seeing him not give a fuck when he chops people's fingers off. When he gains a new power and gets stronger, you get the same feeling of satisfaction as leveling up in a game. And as he teaches the method to his group, it's just, I don't fucking know, it feels good. The fights are really cool, but come on, you know the main character isn't gonna lose. But it's cool to imprint yourself on the main character and think, man, if I was in this situation, I'd go back in time. And so who's this for? Well, if you're into zombie shit, or maybe you're sick of zombie shit, Moshi fanren is just that with a bit of a twist. You can expect some crazy badass moments every other chapter, and a story that at least keeps you entertained. Isekai is an oversaturated and yucky market full of clones and plagiarisms of other isekai, so it's a surprise that her summon is actually extremely readable. Our protagonist is a neat Discord user, and he's really fucking cringy. This guy clearly uses Reddit. Anyway, as he's doing nerd shit, he falls from the sky into another world as a summoned beast. Turns out by saying some nerd shit, he can cast just about any spell he desires by using an item from the real world. With the ability to go in and out of the fantasy world, our main character slowly comes out of his shell in the real world while saving another. Now, a cool thing about this isekai is that it doesn't really take place in the same video game as every other isekai. There's no adventurers guild, there's no leveling up, they just have a bunch of crazy ass monsters and people who kill the monsters. The individuality of each enemy really makes you question what the fuck is wrong with the author's head, and speaking of individuality, each attack the main character uses is interesting and fun to read. There's a giant bug, fuck it, use bug spray. His power is only limited by his imagination. The art is probably some of the best I've ever seen in manhwa, and while there's political shit happening and some big adventure the characters are going on, I'm more interested in the main character character development and where the story will take him. My final verdict is read the first 2 chapters or so and you'll know exactly what you're getting into. The only problem I really have with this one is that each chapter is incredibly fucking short and dragged out to make as much money as possible. Whatever. I don't fuck with romance. You guys know me. We don't lie these hoes. Lookism started a weird addiction to me that I never thought I would have. I'm gonna call this guy Daniel. Daniel's a fat kid who's bullied throughout his entire school life. One day after having enough, his mom clutches all the money she can to pay for Daniel to go to school somewhere else and have his own place. When he wakes up in his new home, Daniel has the appearance of a super attractive model that catches the eye of everyone else. I guess he just looks like a skinny Asian guy to me. Anyway, he finds out that while sleeping, he gains control of the other bodies, so technically he's conscious for 24 hours a day. And while within the handsome body, he experiences a life he's never seen before. But despite having such an interesting premise, the story owes a lot of its entertainment value to its characters. Daniel's super modest because he's always been treated like shit. He helps out the little guys and doesn't take his gift for granted. But what really hooks me to the story is his desire for self-improvement. He wants to become fit, he wants to be better for his mom, he wants a better education, and I really admire that in his character, and it makes it really fun to read. The mom is just the best mom in the entirety of manga or manhwa or whatever, and their relationship is just super sweet. The friends Daniel make are all really cool, and the only problem I have with the characters is the exaggerating bullying and some of the annoying side people. Let's wrap this up. Even if you've never read something like this, I think you should check it out. Lookism really depends on an emotional appeal. If you can connect with the characters and shit, there's some really heavy moments, both high and low. If you've ever wanted to beat the shit out of someone, or maybe you've been bullied or something, you'll definitely be able to identify with some of the ideas of wanting to be a better person. However, it falls into a bad case of Manhwa syndrome, where they just start milking the series and it gets really repetitive. I've straight up skipped certain arcs because it felt like filler. Another con is that while writing the script, I found out the fandom is just, please fucking Regardless, check it out. You'll either love it or dislike it. It's gonna really bother me if I don't have 10 of these, so fuck it. Raid is only 4 chapters deep, but here's the summary so far. Sometime in the future, a super advanced AI called Yggdrasil took control of the world and turned it into a game. I don't know how that works, so don't ask. Anyway, most conventional jobs have been rendered useless and they've been replaced by quests. Our main character is a dude who does some shady work for a boss of some corporation. One of his jobs is the retrieval of a young girl with a hacked wrist thingy, and that's where the story really begins, I think. Anyway, although the story is really young, I'm really digging a bunch of stuff. For example, the first chapter almost felt like watching a movie, and the aesthetic gives off this nice cyberpunk feel. The video game aspect also fits really well because whenever someone wants to run your fade, they transform into a sick-ass space armor. There's only 4 chapters, so I'm not going to talk your ears off, just check it out if you want. So I guess the takeaway is, you can enjoy K-pop, but if you identify yourself as a stan, just fucking Anyway, yeah, a few of these just can't compare to the storytelling of manga for numerous reasons, but hopefully you give them a shot. So, when I was making this video, I watched a little bit of my last manga vid. I could barely fucking sit through it because the music was so loud, but I noticed I didn't really give a good summary of each story, so I tried to fix that in this one. Let me know how you feel about that. I know I was definitely talking about each manhwa a little bit longer this time around. Depending on how good this video does, I actually held back some of my favorite manhwa for part 2, so ka-chow, peace.